The galaxy was quiet. Too quiet. For 3,000 years, not a single shot had been fired between humans and the alien alliance. The armistice had lasted longer than most civilizations. Stars were born and died in that time. Empires rose and crumbled in silence. But humans remembered. They never forgot the old war. They never forgot the fire and blood that forced the truce. The aliens believed peace had made humanity soft. They believed Earth had grown weak, distracted, and harmless. They thought humans were trapped in their small corner of the galaxy, farming, building, and singing songs of peace. They were wrong. The first sign came as a whisper in the dark. A coded message traveled across the stars, not from humans but from the alien High Council. Their words were sharp, cold, and final. The truce is over. Humanity must kneel, or humanity must die. On every human world, the message echoed like thunder. On Earth, the halls of power went silent. In the great chambers of Mars, leaders leaned forward, listening in silence. Across the colonies of Jupiter's moons, soldiers stopped their drills and looked at the sky. Fear should have followed. Panic should have risen. But it did not. Instead, something strange happened. A smile, thin and cold, spread across the faces of human leaders. Their eyes did not show fear. They showed something else, something darker. The aliens had broken the truce. The waiting was finally over. The stars began to tremble with movement. Alien fleets rose from their homeworlds, their massive ships like iron shadows moving toward human space. Their admirals laughed and spoke of glory. They called humanity fragile, untested, and soft. They promised their soldiers easy victory, quick conquest, and rich spoils. They promised the end of humanity's story. Yet, far away, on hidden stations and secret outposts, humans were already preparing. For 3,000 years, they had smiled in silence. They had agreed to peace, but they had never trusted it. They remembered the first war, the arrogance of the aliens, and the rivers of blood. They knew peace was only a pause, not an end. So humanity had waited. And while they waited, they built. Deep under the oceans of Earth, in the black deserts of Mars, beneath the ice of Europa, humans prepared. Weapons never shown to the aliens rested in silence. Armies trained in shadows. Fleets cloaked in the dark waited for the day the truce would break. And now that day had come. On the alien council world, the High Lords celebrated. They believed their strike would crush Earth before humans could even rise to defend themselves. They believed humanity had wasted the centuries, dancing and singing under false peace. But in the shadows, whispers moved. A human commander stood in a hidden war room, watching the alien fleets on the holoscreens. His face was calm. His voice was steady. "So, they finally remembered us," he said. Around him, other officers gave thin smiles. They had been waiting for this day since the day they were born. Generations had trained for this moment, each passing their knowledge to the next, always whispering the same warning: the truce will not last. Now the warning was truth. Alarms began to echo across human space. Civilian worlds prepared for siege. Military fleets, long hidden, rose from their shelters. Silent black ships, unseen by alien eyes, began to move. Humanity had been underestimated, and that mistake would cost the aliens dearly. Yet the aliens still believed. On their flagships, alien commanders stood tall and proud. "We will take Earth within the month," one boasted. "Their spirit is broken. They will bow before us." But on Earth, in a dark chamber, the President of Humanity sat with her council. The alien threat did not shake her. She leaned forward, her voice low and calm. "For 3,000 years, they believed we were weak. They believed we forgot. But we never forget. Now they will remember us." Her council gave no cheers, no loud cries. Only cold smiles, the same smiles that stretched across the faces of soldiers, engineers, and civilians alike. It was the smile of patience, the smile of hunters who had waited too long for prey to return. The stars above began to fill with alien fleets, dark and terrible. But behind them, hidden and silent, human fleets moved into position. The war was coming. The truce was broken. The galaxy would soon learn the truth. Humans had never been weak. They had only been waiting. And now, after 3,000 years, the waiting was over. 3,000 years ago, the galaxy was fire. Humans were not rulers then, only survivors, a young species fighting for breath among giants. The alien alliance had called them reckless, stubborn, and unworthy of the stars. They had crushed human fleets, burned colonies, and driven survivors back to Earth. Humanity stood at the edge of extinction. And yet, something happened the aliens never expected. Humans refused to die. Even when their fleets were shattered, even when their cities burned, they fought on. They fought in the dark, with broken weapons, with bare hands if needed. They fought until the aliens grew tired of the blood. The war dragged on for centuries, and for every human that fell, another rose. At last, the aliens offered peace, not out of mercy but out of exhaustion. They signed the armistice, believing humanity would fade into quiet weakness. But they did not understand the human heart. The armistice became legend. For the aliens, it was history to be forgotten, a story told with pride of how they spared the young race. But for humans, it was different. The story was burned into their blood. Parents told children, soldiers told recruits, and teachers told students. Never forget, they said. The truce will not last. One day they will return. Humanity grew, not soft but sharper. While the aliens sang of their victory, humans built. They built deeper than anyone could see. Beneath the oceans, in hollowed mountains, in the endless void beyond Pluto, they created weapons that no alien could imagine, fleets that no spy could detect, armies that no report could confirm. Every generation swore an oath, be ready. On the surface, humans smiled. They traded with alien merchants, they spoke of peace in councils, they welcomed travelers with open hands. But behind the smiles was steel. There were secret academies where children trained in war before they were even old enough to speak of peace. There were black laboratories where scientists whispered of weapons that bent light, twisted gravity, and burned stars. The aliens thought humanity was harmless. But they never saw the shadows. The shadows were everywhere. Silent fleets of ships without names floated near gas giants, cloaked in silence. Hidden bunkers on asteroids held weapons with power to rip moons apart. Human minds worked endlessly, always with one thought, the truce will break. On Earth, a hidden library existed, filled with records of the First War. They were not censored, not softened. The horrors were shown in detail. Children learned them as stories, not to cry but to understand. Every human grew up with the memory of alien arrogance. And so, when the aliens finally sent their message of war, humanity did not panic. They did not ask, why now? They had always known it was coming. The past had whispered it to them for 3,000 years. The aliens had forgotten, but humans had remembered. In the alien capital, leaders believed the human cold smiles were foolish bravado. They thought humanity had grown delusional. But in truth, those smiles came from the past. They were the smiles of a species that had waited, prepared, and sharpened itself in silence. One human historian once wrote, "Peace for us is not rest. Peace for us is training." And that training never stopped. As alien fleets crossed the borders, humanity activated old protocols. Black stations, long silent, lit up with power. War codes, locked for millennia, were opened. Armies moved as if they had rehearsed it every day. And they had. The ghosts of the First War walked with them, guiding every step. Human leaders spoke of strategy, but their voices carried the weight of centuries. "Our ancestors bled so we could be ready," one general said. "Now we show the galaxy what 3,000 years of patience has made us." The shadows of the past were no longer shadows. They were alive, rising into the light. The aliens thought they were predators, ending a weak prey. But they did not know that the prey had become hunters. They did not know that humanity had turned waiting into a weapon. The first war had ended with a truce. The second war would not. Humanity had been underestimated once. It would not happen again. And as the alien fleets closed in, the past whispered one final truth into the hearts of humankind. This time, we will not stop until it is finished. The silence of space broke with fire. Alien fleets poured across the border like a black storm, their warships massive and endless, blotting out the stars. They struck first at the outer human colonies, small worlds far from Earth, believing these would fall without resistance. On the colony of Ardent, 5, alarms screamed as the skies filled with alien cruisers. Families rushed into bunkers, children cried, and soldiers readied old weapons. The aliens expected fear, but what they saw chilled them. The human soldiers did not shake. They did not scream. They stood firm, calm, and ready, as if they had been waiting their entire lives for this moment. The first blasts rained down, burning cities and tearing apart defenses. The colony seemed doomed. But even as buildings fell, the defenders fought back with precision. Human ships, small and fast, darted through the chaos, striking at weak points. One alien captain laughed at the resistance, calling it meaningless. His laughter ended when his cruiser suddenly exploded from a weapon no report had ever mentioned, a weapon that tore through shields like paper. Across the fleet, alien commanders froze. This was not supposed to happen. Humans were supposed to be unprepared, yet their response was exact, disciplined, and deadly. On the colony, as smoke covered the sky, a message was sent through the stars. Hold on. We are coming. Every human world heard those words, and their hearts hardened with resolve. The aliens did not understand. They thought they had found prey, but what they had awakened was something else entirely. The second strike came at the colony of Halion 3, where alien bombers rained fire for hours. Yet beneath the ground, humans had built hidden fortresses, armed with cannons that no alien intelligence had ever detected. When the bombers passed overhead, the ground erupted with fire, tearing the sky apart, destroying entire wings in seconds. The aliens were stunned. For 3,000 years, humans had hidden these defenses, never showing their true power, always pretending to be weaker than they were. Now the masks were falling. On their flagships, alien generals shouted orders, demanding greater attacks, but inside their hearts, doubt began to grow. They had broken the truce believing they would win quickly, but what if they had made a mistake? What if humanity had not wasted the centuries, but sharpened itself in silence? The answer came swiftly. At the edge of the solar system, where no alien dared to approach for centuries, human fleets began to rise. Ships black as night, cloaked in shadows, drifted forward with terrifying silence. They were unlike anything the aliens had seen before, not crude, not weak, but powerful, advanced, and disciplined. An alien scout vessel approached, hoping to measure this hidden fleet. It never returned. In seconds, it was reduced to fragments. The humans had fired only once, but that was enough. Across the galaxy, alien commanders realized the truth too late. The first strikes had revealed something terrifying. Humanity was not only ready, they were eager. On Earth, the news of the battle spread. Civilians wept for the lost, but their tears were not of despair. They were of fury, of iron resolve. Factories lit up with power, soldiers rushed to stations, and fleets hidden for generations moved into place. On Mars, a general stood before his troops and spoke simply, "The first war was survival. This war is justice." His words burned into the hearts of every soldier, and their cold smiles returned. In the alien war councils, fear began to whisper. Reports spoke of human weapons beyond prediction, of fleets that appeared from nowhere, of colonies that refused to die even under fire. The arrogance that fueled the alien invasion began to crack. For the first time in 3,000 years, the Alliance felt something they had not felt in ages: fear. But humanity did not stop. Their counterattacks grew sharper, their traps deadlier, and their resistance more unbreakable with every passing hour. The first strike had shown the galaxy a truth long hidden. Humanity had been waiting, watching, and preparing, and now their patience had ended. The truce was broken, the war had begun, and this time, the story would not end the same. The war spread like fire across the stars, and everywhere the aliens turned, they saw the same thing that unsettled them more than weapons or fleets. They saw the cold smiles of humans. On the battlefields of broken colonies, human soldiers stood among the ruins, calm and silent, their faces marked not by fear but by something else, something colder. They looked at the alien warriors not with terror but with steady eyes, as if they had been waiting for this exact moment since birth. In the chambers of human leadership, the same expression appeared. When alien threats thundered across transmissions, human leaders did not shout back, they did not tremble, they only smiled thinly, and the aliens began to wonder why. For 3,000 years they had believed the truce had tamed humanity, yet now, at the very moment of war, it was humanity that seemed steady and unbroken, while alien soldiers began to feel unease in their bones. On one battlefield above the gas giant Arcturus, alien troops landed in overwhelming numbers. They expected a swift conquest. Human defenders were outnumbered 10-1, their bunkers surrounded, their skies filled with alien fire. But when the alien commander demanded surrender, the human officer only gave a small, cold smile and replied, "You will regret breaking the truce." Moments later, hidden guns roared from underground, and cloaked ships rose from the gas clouds, tearing the invaders apart. The aliens realized too late that the humans had laid the battlefield like a trap, and the smile had been a warning, not a bluff. Reports of such moments spread across alien ranks, and with every story, their confidence cracked further. Soldiers whispered of human soldiers who fought without fear, who smiled even when surrounded, who stared into the eyes of death as if death itself was too late to frighten them. Alien war councils debated the meaning, some calling it madness, others calling it discipline, but none could deny the effect it had. Their warriors began to hesitate, their strikes slowed, their morale weakened. Humanity, however, grew sharper with every passing hour. On Earth, massive war fleets, long hidden in silence, revealed themselves. They were not rusty ships of a forgotten power but black-armored giants, armed with weapons that glowed with strange energy. When they launched, entire cities watched them rise with pride. Civilians, instead of despairing, stood tall and whispered the same words. They should not have broken the truce. Across the alien empire, fear spread. Generals demanded explanations from their intelligence officers. How had humanity grown so powerful in secret? How had they hidden so much from the Alliance's watchful eyes? The answer was in the cold smiles they now feared. Humanity had not wasted the truce. They had trained in silence, they had built in shadows, and they had waited with patience so perfect that the aliens had mistaken it for weakness. In the void near Titan, a great battle raged. Alien fleets moved in with superior numbers, confident their strength would overwhelm. Yet the humans fought differently than in the past. They did not rush blindly. They moved with precision, every formation perfect, every strike timed as if they had practiced this battle for centuries. Alien ships fell one by one, and their captains grew desperate. In the chaos, one alien commander finally understood. "They are not fighting us with anger," he whispered to himself, watching his fleet burn. "They are fighting us with patience." That patience was written in their eyes, in the cold smiles that now haunted alien warriors more than human weapons. In the deepest command center of Mars, the supreme human admiral watched the reports with calm expression. His officers stood silently, their faces the same as every soldier outside. No shouting, no panic, only discipline and the faint curl of grim smiles. The admiral's voice was quiet but carried the weight of centuries. "They thought the truce protected us," he said. "But it was their shield. And now it is gone." Across human space, those words echoed, and everywhere, the smiles remained. They were not the smiles of joy or arrogance. They were the smiles of hunters who had waited in silence too long, and now that the prey had returned, the hunt had begun. And as the alien fleets fell back in shock, they began to understand a truth far darker than defeat. Humanity was not smiling because they had already won. Humanity was smiling because the war had only just begun. The galaxy had seen human fleets, human discipline, and human patience, but now it was about to see something far more terrifying, something the aliens had never imagined, something whispered only in human legends as the forgotten weapon. For centuries, the Alliance had believed humans were bound by technology inferior to theirs, yet hidden in the deep shadows of space were creations older than any alien empire, projects that had begun the day the truce was signed. They were not spoken of in open records, not stored in simple archives, but carried forward by secret orders, passed from one generation of leaders to the next. These were weapons built not for defense but for the final war, weapons designed with one thought: when the truce breaks, humanity must never be threatened again. In the dark void beyond Neptune, enormous stations long thought abandoned came alive. Engines that had not burned for thousands of years flared into light, revealing massive war machines cloaked in silence. They were ships unlike anything the aliens had ever seen, their hulls layered with strange metals, their cannons humming with ancient power. The first activation sent shockwaves across space, both literal and in fear, for alien sensors finally detected what had been hidden for millennia. At first, the alien admirals laughed. They believed the old human weapons would be outdated relics, unable to match their modern fleets. But when the forgotten weapon fired its first shot, the laughter died. A single beam of light cut across the void, striking an alien battleship at the heart. Shields failed instantly, armor cracked like glass, and in the span of a breath the mighty vessel was reduced to dust. Silence filled the alien command channels, broken only by disbelief. One weapon had destroyed what normally took entire fleets to overcome. More beams followed, more alien ships turned to wreckage, and the truth became clear. Humanity had not only prepared for war, they had prepared to end it forever. On Earth, when news of the forgotten weapon's return spread, civilians whispered the old name given to it by ancestors. They called it the Hammer of Silence, for it had been built in secret, in silence, to deliver blows so final no enemy could recover. Generals spoke with calm certainty as they unleashed more of these hidden creations. They thought 3,000 years made us weak, one commander said. But we used every day, every year, every century, to sharpen this blade. Alien soldiers began to fear before battles even started. They no longer charged with arrogance. They waited for the sudden flash, the deadly beam that could erase them without warning. Their morale crumbled, their discipline faltered, and their confidence broke. The Alliance Council, once so certain of victory, now argued in panic. Some demanded retreat, others demanded stronger attacks, but all of them whispered the same fear. How much more had humanity hidden? On the battlefield near Sirius, an entire alien fleet attempted a desperate assault, launching all weapons at once to overwhelm the humans. But the forgotten weapon revealed a second secret. It did not only destroy. It bent reality itself. Gravity shifted, pulling alien ships into deadly spirals, tearing them apart without a single human shot fired. Survivors fled, their screams echoing through channels, warning others that humanity was no longer fighting on equal ground. They were fighting with something beyond alien comprehension. Human soldiers did not celebrate loudly. They watched the destruction with the same cold smiles, as if everything was unfolding exactly as they had known it would. The aliens realized in horror that the humans had expected this war, had built for it, had dreamed of it, and had made sure that once it began, they would never lose. One alien general, broken and desperate, cried out before his command council, "We thought they were weak. We thought they forgot. But they were waiting. For 3,000 years they were waiting for us." And across human space, the cold truth echoed in silence. The forgotten weapon was not just a tool of war. It was a message, a declaration, and a promise. The truce had ended, the galaxy was burning, and humanity had revealed its true face at last. The galaxy trembled as the war reached its breaking point, and everywhere alien fleets struggled to hold the line, but the tide was no longer theirs, for this was the great turning, the moment when humanity rose from shadows to dominance. The aliens had entered the war with confidence, believing their numbers, their ships, and their long empires would crush humanity swiftly, but now they saw a different truth unfolding before them. Their fleets were broken, their soldiers shaken, and their leaders divided. Human fleets advanced with terrifying precision, striking not with chaos but with cold, calculated moves, each battle planned as if rehearsed for centuries. The forgotten weapons roared, tearing apart whole formations, but it was not only weapons that turned the war, it was the spirit of humanity itself. Alien commanders noticed it first in the eyes of human soldiers. Even when surrounded, even when outnumbered, they did not break. They fought calmly, steadily, their faces marked with the same cold smiles that had spread across the species. Those smiles now haunted the alien warriors more than any cannon or beam, for they revealed a truth the aliens had never understood: humanity did not fear them. Reports began flooding alien councils. Colonies that should have fallen in days resisted for months. Entire fleets vanished under coordinated ambushes. Human armadas that were never recorded in alien intelligence appeared from hidden bases, their crews disciplined and ruthless. In desperation, the Alien Council tried to form new alliances, calling on other species to join them, but even those allies hesitated. They had seen the rise of humanity, they had heard the screams of dying fleets, and they began to wonder if standing against humans was folly. Division spread among the aliens. Some wanted peace again, but others demanded the total destruction of Earth, and so their unity cracked. Humanity saw this fracture and pressed harder. In the skies above Vega Prime, a decisive battle unfolded. Alien fleets gathered in one massive strike, determined to finally break humanity's advance, but the humans came prepared. Hidden carriers released swarms of drones, thousands of them moving like one mind, weaving through enemy fire and cutting ships apart with surgical precision. The aliens tried to adapt, but every move they made was anticipated, every counter broken. At the heart of the battle, a human commander spoke across all channels, his voice calm, his words sharp as blades. "You should have let the truce last." The message spread like fire, and alien morale shattered. Soldiers who once shouted with pride now fought with shaking hands. Captains who once boasted of victory now begged for retreat. The Great Turning was not just the shift of war, it was the shift of power, the moment when humanity no longer defended itself but advanced without hesitation. Worlds once under alien control began to fall into human hands. Cities surrendered, not out of loyalty but out of fear of what resistance would bring. Alien civilians whispered of human fleets coming like shadows, silent and merciless, bringing cold justice across the stars. In their desperation, the alien High Lords called upon their greatest weapons, relics of their own ancient wars, but even these failed against the relentless human advance. Every weapon they revealed, humanity had an answer for, as if they had expected it all along. The Great Turning was complete when one alien empire, long a proud member of the Alliance, abandoned the war entirely, refusing to lose more soldiers against an enemy that seemed unbreakable. Their withdrawal spread panic to others, and soon the mighty alliance that once stood united against humans began to fracture, each member fearing it would be the next to fall. Humanity pressed forward with unshakable focus, their fleets cutting through the remains of alien defenses, their soldiers advancing without hesitation. On Earth and Mars, the people did not cheer loudly, they watched in silence, their smiles cold, for they knew the war was not yet over. They did not fight for glory, they fought for finality, and they would not stop until the galaxy understood the cost of breaking the truce. And so the Great Turning became legend, the moment when prey became hunter, when the oppressed became the rulers, and when humanity showed the stars that patience could be sharper than any blade. The galaxy burned as the war neared its end, and everywhere the signs were clear that humanity stood victorious, for the alien alliance was broken, their fleets scattered, their empires trembling, and their courage lost. Yet the humans did not rush to celebrate, they did not raise their voices in joy, they simply moved forward with the same calm discipline that had carried them from the first strike to the last battle, their faces marked by the same cold smile that had haunted their enemies from the very beginning. On the ruined world of Xanar, once a proud jewel of the alien empire, alien soldiers surrendered in silence as human troops advanced through the ashes. The humans did not mock, did not taunt, they only marched forward with steady steps, offering no comfort and no cruelty, only the promise that the age of fear was over. In the skies above, the last great fleet of the aliens attempted one final stand, a desperate attempt to save what remained of their honor, but the outcome was decided before the first shot was fired. Human fleets surrounded them from every side, their formations flawless, their weapons humming with deadly power, and when the battle began it was swift and merciless, alien cruisers torn apart, command ships silenced, and dreadnoughts broken in half. The survivors begged for retreat, but humanity gave no answer, only silence and the endless cold smiles of their commanders as the alien fleets crumbled to dust. Across the galaxy, news of the destruction spread like a storm, and entire alien worlds surrendered without resistance, fearful of what defiance might bring. In the great chamber of the Human Council, leaders watched the final reports. Their faces were calm, their voices steady, and when one advisor asked if the war was truly over, the President of Humanity spoke softly. For them, yes. But for us, it has only begun. Her words carried a chilling truth, for the war had not only been about survival, it had been about transformation. Humanity was no longer the young species spared by mercy, they were no longer the prey hiding under the shield of a truce, they were now the hunters, the rulers, the rising force that would shape the stars. The aliens finally understood the meaning of the cold smiles that had followed them across every battlefield. They realized the truce had never been for humanity's protection, it had been for their own. It had kept the predator caged, had delayed the inevitable, but when they broke it, they released the fury of 3,000 years of patience, and that fury had burned them to ash. In the alien capital, once filled with pride and arrogance, silence reigned. The great lords who had declared war sat broken, their thrones empty, their cities bowed beneath human banners. They stared at the humans who now walked their streets, and they knew the truth, their time had ended. Yet humanity did not destroy them completely. Instead, they offered a choice: submit and live under human rule, or resist and be erased from the stars. The choice was no choice at all, and one by one, the alien empires bent the knee. The galaxy was reshaped not with fire but with silence, the silence of inevitability, the silence of an age ending and another beginning. In the final days of the war, a human admiral stood before his troops, his voice calm, his expression as cold as ever. 3,000 years ago, he said, they believed we were weak. They believed we would fade. But we waited, and we sharpened ourselves, and now the galaxy belongs to us. His soldiers gave no roar of triumph, no wild cheer, only nods and thin smiles, for they understood that the true battle had always been patience, and patience had won. Across the stars, alien children whispered of the humans who smiled in silence, of the soldiers who never broke, of the fleets that came like shadows and left only ruins behind. They whispered it as warning, as legend, as truth. And in the darkest corners of space, far beyond the borders of war, other watchers stirred, ancient beings who had remained silent as the conflict raged, their eyes turning now to humanity with caution. For they too understood the message written in the ashes: the 3,000-year truce had ended, and with it the old balance of power, and now a new age had begun. It was the age of mankind, and the galaxy would never be the same again.